This is section 9, lecture 1. In this section, we're going to be talking about the United States economic policies regarding our foreign policy and how the United States uses its economic power to get what it wants in the world. The terminology that is associated with nation states using their economic might to get what they want in foreign policy is economic statecraft, and it falls under the field of political economy and international political economy, particularly when we apply it to its use in foreign policy. Economic statecraft is defined as the use of various economic tools, which includes trade, giving foreign aid, placing economic sanctions on other nation states by a country in pursuit of their foreign policy goals. The field of international political economy is one that addresses how nation states and their economic interests are affected by the international economy and how they attempt to influence the international economy with their state power and their economic power. If you remember from our introductory chapter in this class, the U.S.'s place in the world is one of primacy or hegemony, and this includes our place in the global economy. I have here several statistics regarding the recent history of our place in the world. In 2009, the GDP of the United States was $14.3 trillion of a $59 trillion global economy. And so, one country, the United States, you can see over time, has had as large as a quarter, 25%, of the world's economy. Now, since the economic crisis in 2008 and 2009, since the growth in the economies of China and of the European Union collectively, we see that percentage that represents the U.S.'s primacy in the world has lowered a couple of figures, but roughly the historical pattern is somewhat stable, which is to say that the United States economy is the largest in the world and accounts for the largest percentage of any one nation state in the global economy. And this is based on our trade, it is based on our foreign direct investment, and it is based on our domestic economy as well. At the end of World War II, when the rest of the world's economy was destroyed, the U.S. had 50% of the global economy, but with the rise of others, with the rise of trading relations and the rebuilding of industrialized nation states, and now with the growth of less developed nation states, the United States percentage in the global economy is lower. The United States has among the highest mean and median incomes. In 2008, our trade was at 4.3 trillion and 3.8 trillion in 2011. There you see the effects of the recent global financial crisis. Yet, even today in 2016, we remain the number one importer and the number two exporter among nation states. This chart shows statistics from 2010 where we still remain. That is, the number one exporter in the world is China. It has become the world's factory. And this is something that plays out in our politics, and is something that politicians attempt to address. But the world's number one consumer is still the United States. We are the number one importer. And so we do more trade, more business with the rest of the world than any other nation state. If you total all the nation states of the European Union, they surpass the United States in those measures. But you can see there individually that is not the case on a country-by-country basis. How do we use this economic might? How do we use this economic power? The U.S. exercises its economic power in a real-world context, and this is what we're going to be discussing over the next 3 lectures of this section. The United States has a leadership role in building and dominating the international financial institutions of the world. I have here that we lead in the Bretton Woods institutions. The Bretton Woods Agreement, after the end of World War II, built what is now the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. And we will be discussing those institutions in a subsequent lecture, but just to give you a hint at the U.S.'s leadership role, not only did we build those institutions based on our own ideals, but we still maintain a dominant voting share of those institutions. That is the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And that's what I have here below. The U.S. has a 16.75% vote total in the IMF. And in order to get a major policy passed through the IMF, you have to have 85% of the vote total. So this means that the United States has an effective veto over the policies of the IMF. The same goes with the World Bank. The U.S. in recent years has had over 16% of the vote share in the World Bank. Its main entity is called the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Once again, in the World Bank, you have to have 85% of the total vote in order to make major policy changes. And so, once again, the United States has an effective veto over the policies of the World Bank. We give more than any other nation state to the World Bank as well. And so, this power economically that the United States has can be seen in a practical sense through exercising power in these international financial institutions. Another area where our dominance can be seen, our economic might can be put into practice, is through the level of foreign aid that the United States gives. And so here I have numbers for 2008, 2010, 2012, and we see then that in raw terms, that is raw numbers, the United States gives more than any other nation state in the world. One of the criticisms of our foreign policy giving is that other nation states give more as a percentage of their GDP, but our politicians, our policymakers feel comfortable with the idea that in raw numbers we give more than any other nation state. One of the reasons that we don't give more as a percentage of our GDP is, of course, domestic politics. And this is where we see the interplay of political economics come in to influence our policies. One of the most unpopular areas of our budget is foreign aid. And that is because politicians here in the United States believe that domestic needs come first. They look to errors of giving foreign aid in the past, arguing that we have given to corrupt leaders and corrupt nations. They look to the inefficiencies of programs in achieving our foreign policy goals, and argue then, why give more in foreign aid? Another bigger criticism is that our foreign aid has been ineffective, that these programs continue, the money continues, but poverty continues as well. However, over the past decades, there have been very large strides at reducing the number of people in absolute poverty in the world and increasing healthcare access, education access, food access. This doesn't just come from nation state to nation state giving. It also is a tool of international foreign aid organizations like the World Bank and the United Nations, of which the United States has a large leadership role. And it is also a function, these successes are a function of private aid. But this is where the United States dominates as well. The United States dominates the world in giving to private charities and private organizations more so than any other nation state by far. And so if we look at official nation state to nation state spending, maybe it is relatively small as a percentage of our GDP. Maybe there are these criticisms that can be accurately lodged against it. However, we do see successes that also come from not just the government of the United States, but the citizens of the United States through their private donations. A final point that I have here at the bottom is that the United States leads the world in foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment is how much money from the United States is invested in businesses, stocks, bonds, industries, so on and so forth around the world. And I have here a relatively recent statistic that almost $5 trillion in assets is invested by U.S. investors abroad. And so if we take this all together, we see then that our primacy in the world in economics leads to political influence in other places. Our ability to influence international financial institutions, our ability to influence other nation states with foreign aid and foreign direct investment. And we will be addressing those a little bit more specifically in the other lectures in this section.